Abba-dabby dude! Hello, this is Abba-dabby dude. Welcome back. And today I've got my hands on a model year 21 I Pace. So today's video is just a review of the model year 21-22 I Paces, and really, rather than just a straight review, it's more of a comparison with my own first edition model year 19 I Pace. So in other words, it's just a comparison of the original I Pace versus this sort of midlife refresh I Pace. So we'll start by moving around the car and showing you a few areas. Now the first thing to note is that this particular model is the HSE, as you can see there, and I don't know if you can tell from the side, there's a few little telltale signs, but this is actually the Hse Black Edition. If I move around the back, first of all you can see the black wheels and the black trim around the windows. Now the first edition actually had this, although it was optional extra I think on all other models, but the first edition did have that black trim. However, what it also has is the black badging. So you got the black leaper, the black Jaguar logo, IPace, EV400, all in black, as opposed to the chrome which was on the original launch IPace, if you like, the model years 19 and 20 IPaces, which predated this one. If we then come around the front, you can see that the front grille also has a black surround compared to the sort of brushed metal on mine, and I think that's about it really. As I say, this one is the HSE. It's got no additional options, I don't think. I think it's just a standard HSE. See, it's got the glass, panoramic glass roof there, and yeah, that's about it really. There's not an awful lot more to say about it from the outside. There's no real change. One thing I will say though on the Black Edition is I don't feel this particular colour particularly suits the Black Edition. I think the contrast, particularly the wheels, but even the leaper badge and the Jaguar logo on the back, the contrast between the badges and the colour of the car is too big for me. It leaps out. I mean, the wheels in particular just really stand out to me from the car, and not in a good way, not in a wow that's really distinctive and a nice way. It just jars slightly, that pale silver with the dark gloss black wheels, and the same with the logos on the back. Just a personal taste thing, but for me I think the black pack would look much nicer in some of the darker colours. I think this would actually suit the chrome badging better, certainly the chrome leaper and sort of polished alloys, or you know, sort of silver coloured alloys rather than the black ones, I think would look better on it. But that's a minor thing. I mean, that's an optional thing anyway. That's purely to personal taste. If you like it, you buy it, and you pay more for it as well, by the way. I think it's about an extra £4,500 maybe. It's quite a lot. I did look and it was quite a lot. There's around about £4,500–5,000 difference between the HSE and the HSE Black Edition. But as I say, it's purely personal taste. If I was going for this colour, I would go for the non-Black Edition. But if I was buying a black I Pace, or maybe even one of the dark blue colours or something like that, I'd be more tempted to go for the black then. Likewise with one of the sort of darker silver / grey colours as well. But for the paler colours, the whites and the silvers, I don't think it carries off the black pack as well. Purely personal taste. I don't think it looks ugly, I just prefer it in the non-Black Edition. But as I say, it's personal taste. If that's what you like, then that's what you buy. I've heard a lot of people refer to the white ones with the black pack as the Stormtrooper Edition, and I get that. It does kind of look slightly Stormtroopery from the front, but as I say, for me, I would choose black pack for a darker colour and non-black pack for a paler colour. But yeah, externally, other than that, there's there's no real difference to see. Being the HSE is very closely spec'd to my first edition. The first edition was just really the HSE with some extra options thrown in, mainly on the interior. So yeah, this at least will be a good side-by-side comparison of the two models, really. So that's it for the outside. Let's get in and see what's different in there. There's a lot more to see in there, to be honest, because as I say, this is just a midlife refresh. So opening the door, let's have a look at the inside and see what instantly leaps out as being different. And the first thing that leaps out at me, of course, is that this one has the black interior. Now that again is just the way this car is spec'd. On mine I took the Oyster interior and the Oyster headlining. This is all black with the Windsor seats, which I think are standard on the HSE. I have to say, for me personally, I do prefer the white, or should I say the Oyster. The white colour, or the lighter colour, I just think looks more premium. It looks more premium, but also the whole interior of the car opens up more. It feels much more spacious in the white interior. I mean, it's a spacious car, it's not like it feels cramped, but I just feel the light colour opens it up a whole lot more. However, really depends on your use case. If you've got a young family, or if you're in the habit of bringing animals in the car, probably the black is a lot more practical for you. But if, like me, you don't have that concern, the light colour, the Oyster as they call it, is a really nice option. I'd say I think it looks a bit more high-end and a bit more spacious, feels more roomy and airy in the light colour. But the black, more practical and not bad. You know, it's not like I hate it. I just, if it was me, I would definitely. And I remember umming and ahhing at the time when I was buying the car. I remember thinking, oh, should I go for the light interior, or should I go with the dark? Is it going to get stained and marked? And simple fact is, it hasn't. It's held up remarkably well. Now I do look after it. I do treat it whenever. Pretty much every time I wash the car, I treat the interior leather, but it's held up really well. The last time I washed it, it did have a slight denim stain on the driver's seat. Must have been from when I bought some new jeans, but it wiped off straight away with the leather treatment, so can't complain really. It's held up brilliantly and much better than I was worried that it would, if you know what I mean. I thought it would age quite badly. That was one of my concerns, and that was why I was in two minds constantly. But having been in this for a little while now, I'm really happy with my choice. Plus, having had it 2.5 years and it's still holding up well, I think I can put that particular fear to bed. But let's get out and get in the back. Again, no real difference in here. It's much the same seating arrangement. Same headrests, same lighting, and everything else on the panoramic roof. It's got that same cutout. If I can show you that, there we go. It's got that same cutout area for the overhead lighting. So again, the middle passenger still gets slightly less headroom than the two side passengers, but this is not a car you would comfortably get 5 adults in anyway. You're talking, if you're going for 3 people in the back, really you're talking about 3 children or teenagers, maybe 2 adults and a child, or, you know, I mean, you could certainly get 3 adults in here, but I wouldn't do it for a long journey, in all honesty. So on the basis, if we're looking at kids, that reduced headlining probably isn't a big deal, but for 3 adults, not little short adults like me, but big grown-up adults, that could pose more of an issue, I think, in terms of headroom. For me, headroom's never an issue in a car, to be honest with you. Likewise, legroom. Oh, big diesel van. Now, one thing I will show you which is different is that this one doesn't have the optional 4-zone climate control spec'd in. So all you've got on the back here is 2 buttons to control the heated seats. Obviously the car's powered down at the moment, so they don't do anything. But of note, where the 1920 model year had USB-A sockets, this one has 2 USB-C and still the 12-volt power supply. But it's replaced the USBs with USB-C, which is nice. I suppose I'm moving with the times. Right, let's get back in the front now and have a look at some of the more important stuff. So you can see there, when you start the car up, you get a slightly different little animation. Really it's purely cosmetic. It's just when you power the car up you get those little sort of triangles and diamonds filling out from the center towards the edge of the screen, whereas in my car you just get the big Jaguar Leaper logo sort of powering up, if you like, with a sort of flash of light across it as it powers up. Both are nice, not really a big selling point, but it is different. Now you can see what is easily the biggest difference in this car from the earlier model, which is the infotainment. As you can see, this is the new Pivi Pro system that Jaguar are very pleased with. They say it's more responsive, although I have to say that since my car received the updates, I'm finding that the Touch Pro Duo is really pretty responsive now. There's a little bit of lag every now and again, but it's almost nothing. It's really not anything of any great significance. And I've found that this still does have some degree of lag as well. I'll try and show you. There you go. You see, I pressed the EV. It was still half a second before it came up to that page. See if there's another one I can use that would do a similar thing. Let's try the eco data. See, again, press it, slight delay, but it is very responsive. I mean, I'm nitpicking, if I'm honest. It's not much, but I don't find it much better than the Touch Pro Duo, if I'm honest. Yeah, the difference is there, but it's really not night and day. It's not something. The early Touch Pro Duo, when the car first launched, was quite sluggish in places, but genuinely now, after all the updates, really we're kind of in a better place now. Really, it boots up much faster and it is much more responsive. I'm happy with it. However, we've now got this. Now it's obviously a very different layout. Straight away you just get these tiles. If I go to the settings page, you can see that it is slightly different from the original settings, in that now it goes to this quick settings page, and you've got 2 choices for the home layout. That was the tiled one. This is the panelled one. You can see, which gives you less information per page. Oh, how do you scroll? Actually, that's a good question. Nope. Let's go back home. Sorry, I'm learning about this myself. Oh, this is the people have been too lazy to delete it from the phone, from the car that have had the car before them. So that's a list of everybody's phones that's used the car previously. So that's your sort of tiled page, and that's your should I say that's your panel page, and this is your tiled page. And I kind of prefer the tiled page, if I'm honest. The panel one maybe looks a little nicer, but I find it much easier to access things a bit more quickly on this layout. Accounts is basically your profiles, if you remember that. Obviously I haven't bothered setting them up on this car, but you can set up profiles so it will remember seat position, whether you like the heated seat on or not, the heated steering wheel on or not, what you like the climate control to, what media source you like, etc, etc. So you can use that and set that up for different drivers and key it to key fobs and or mobile phones being detected. So that's quite nice. I use that on mine all the time, but obviously on this car, not being my car, I haven't bothered setting it up. You've got valet mode, which you enter a pin, puts it into valet mode, you can take it out of valet mode. All the same, basically, nothing's different, just the graphics are different. There's your graphics showing you your current state of charge. There's your energy, which shows your current usage, and that fills up with green and blue as you're charging or discharging the battery, etc. But yeah, I mean, all of this it's all the same stuff that was on the original I-Pace, it's just laid out slightly differently. You got your all surface info, which shows you your power distribution around the car. Sorry, you see a bit of lag there before the graphic came up. And that will show you when you're using all-wheel drive how it's applying power to all the wheels. Again, none of this is new, it's just new graphics. But what I am going to come to now is the new stuff that, or the biggest new thing that's in this car, which I'm really impressed by, I have to say, with some caveats, but I am really impressed by it. So if we, on the touchscreen, if we select cameras now, and you can see it switches to this 3D view from the outside of your car. Now you've still got the original top-down view, again with some caveats, but the means of selecting the camera now, well, on this view you can either tap these left and right arrows to sort of move through each angle, or what I find much more intuitive is tap the viewing position you want to view your car from. And this is like magic. I mean, this is just amazing stuff. How they do this is quite incredible. But yeah, there you go. You can see, you get a view from your car from whatever angle you want. You can get close into the rear side to check your clearance against the curb, both sides. Sort of front quarter view from either side. And I love how it gets all the verges and things, like from, it's weird how it does it, it's very, very clever. And then the rear quarter view, hit the brakes and the brakes light up. Can I turn the lights on? There we go, that's the side lights. There we go, there's the headlamps on. Not sure if you can, it's hard to tell from that with it being light. Let's turn them off and see if they go off. Yep, there you go. Sorry, just I like stuff like that. So yeah, you've got all of those sort of new views as well as the traditional views. So you've got your wide angle rear camera, your sort of normal view rear camera. You've got your wide angle front view and your normal front view. Now what it doesn't do, which I liked on the Model 1920 car, is it doesn't do that split view where you get a view to the left here and a view to the right here. I guess this is kind of mimicking that, but it's just slightly less, I don't know, I found the layout a bit more representative. It was a bit more easy to work out what it was showing me on the old model. It's a minor detail, and I'm sure you will grow used to it on this. But on this, I mean, I'm hoping to get a car going past at some point. Here comes one now, so if I switch quickly to this view, you should see any second now. Here comes the new car. I will swing it round, a bit slow. There you can see it receding off into the distance. As I say, I think that is genius and really nice. I do like having the top down view. I can't work out any way to enlarge it. That's nice, but if I was to nitpick, it does feel just a little bit gimmicky at times. I don't know, I just find the top down view is really nice for positioning. However, there's one thing I need to highlight on the top down view, which is that as it goes past an obstacle, so if an obstacle goes down the left hand side of your car, my car still shows that obstacle. This one seems to black out that part of the screen. It kind of draws a bright blue line around the obstacle. And I'll try and cut in some video of it. I'll try and get it to do it later on. But instead of showing you the obstacle sort of next to you, it kind of just puts like a blue line around it and then blacks off what's behind the line. So while you can still see where the clearance area is, I kind of liked being able to see the actual obstruction. Again, I'm sure it's just a presentational thing which you will get used to, but that's just, you know, to me, I kind of prefer the layout on my screen. However, one thing they have fixed is, if you can see it, the stitching of the cameras now is pretty much seamless. Where on mine, this front camera, the alignment where it joins up with the side cameras is just, it's not right at all. I've had them look at it a few times and I've seen a few people complain about this, but I've not been able to get a resolution to it yet. However, this one is, everything's lined up absolutely perfectly, which is way better. So so on the whole, the camera system, I think, is really, really nice and really impressive and feels very premium. Now, there's just a few other differences as well that's worth highlighting. One is the lower touchscreen. Now, on previous model, on the 1920 model years, the lower touchscreen was standard. Now, I believe, well, it's standard on the HSE. I think it may be standard on the SE, but it's an optional extra on the S. And, you know, that seems a little bit on the tight side to me. That should be standard. It was standard in the previous model. Don't know why it's not standard now. But it is slightly different on this model. So I'll just show you what I mean there. And you can see here, the touchscreen, slightly different graphics. Now, I'm going to have to switch the climate on to show you it, which is going to increase the noise level, but it will increase my comfort level, so that's no bad thing. It's quite a warm day today, and I'm suffering a bit for my art at the moment. But there's the touchscreen. The only two display options you've got on the touchscreen now are this one, and apologies for the slight sort of washed out look to the screen here. I know it's probably getting some bad reflections. You don't experience this from the driver's seat. This is purely because I'm filming it from quite a low angle. So yeah, there's the climate kicking in, so apologies for that. Actually, let me turn the fan down a bit. There we go, that's probably better. I'll override it with manual. So there's your touchscreen. The graphics are slightly different. It's a slightly cleaner look, but, and this is something my wife pointed out to me yesterday, she thought this was a smaller screen than the one in my car, and the reason for that being, they've got these large buttons here now, and the graphics are kind of crammed down into here. So where this used to be up here with these buttons, they've moved these down here and put the actual climate control graphics into a smaller area. Hang on, let me try a different angle on this and see if I can't get it slightly clearer for you. Oops. There, is that better? Yeah, that's probably better. So yeah, so because this is in a smaller area of the screen because a big chunk of it is now taken up with these two buttons. To my wife, it felt like this was a smaller touchscreen, but it's not. It's exactly the same size. Now you've got your seat controls there. You put it to seat control on this, you'll notice that the two dials also switch to the seat control functionality. Switch it to climate, it goes back to climate control. But the difference with this is, let me turn the seats on. You see you can still control the two individual sections of the seat. If you want to switch it to cooling, you rotate the dial to the left, it goes to cooling, the seats go blue. Again, you can control the two individual sections. And you've got 3 cooling levels, 3 heating levels. So that's all the same. The only difference is the graphics on this. But the thing that they've changed, which I kind of don't like, is these are the only 2 screens you have now. Seat and climate control. On mine, you can put other information on there. For example, there's a little climate control settings page, which I think now is built into the main touchscreen settings pages. Probably more user-friendly to put it all in one place, but what I really miss from this, which I use a lot, is the media functionality. I can have my media player on this, and it works even with Apple CarPlay. So you get your media information with a big album art picture there, name of the current track, name of the artist, number of minutes or minutes and seconds remaining, and then you also get the playback controls, the forwards, backwards, play, pause buttons. And although that's replicated on the steering wheel, I actually use that quite a lot, and I like to have it on that display so that, for example, the passenger can easily see what music is playing, regardless of what you've got displayed on the main touchscreen. Again, you can also display that on the dashboard, but I like to have the trip summary on the dashboard and the media controls on there. And you can't do that anymore. You've only got these 2 functions on this screen now, and I'm not quite sure why they did that. I feel that's a downside to the new car, which is a shame, because it's a functionality I use all the time. Not a deal breaker, but I would miss it now, definitely. But something else that's changed as well a little bit is the graphics on the instrument panel display, the dashboard if you like. They've tweaked those graphics a little bit as well. Again, it's nothing major, but it is slightly different. So that's the new display. Functionality is exactly the same. You can have exactly the same layout, but the actual graphics are a little bit different. The battery display indicator, a little bit different. The needle for the... Oops, it's about to shut the car down. I'll just press the brake pad, the brake pedal. Yeah, so the needle graphic is slightly different. I mean, it's very subtle. It's not a massive difference, but it is there. Likewise, as you change through the different modes, there's Eco. You still get the green ring around the outside and the green needle. Move it to rain, ice and snow. You get the blue. I'll go back to Comfort, which is your standard mode, and it's also blue. So Comfort doesn't stand out as much now from rain, ice and snow. The needle looks the same, but if you look at the ring around the outside, the ring is blue for rain, ice and snow, and for Comfort the ring is, it's almost white. It's actually a very pale blue, but it's almost white. So there's a much more subtle difference between those 2 modes. But the biggest difference is when you go into dynamic mode. And I'll do that now. That's it. The needle goes red and you get the little red ring round the outside. Whereas on mine, you get much more drama out of that. You get the needle, the whole thing kind of animates. The dial turns white with black numbers on it. The needle obviously goes red. You get the red ring around it, and the red ambient lighting comes on. But now they've taken all that drama away, and you just get this tiny I mean, it's not, I'm probably overselling it a bit here, but I do kind of like that, you know, the impact of the animated switch to the dynamic speedometer display, where on this you just get that. It's not really very much, but yeah, that's really the main differences there. The graphics are a little bit different, but the functionality is exactly the same. And to be honest, again, I am overselling the drama of switching to dynamic mode, but it is there. It is more dramatic and a bit more, it kind of builds the excitement of going into dynamic mode. I know, sad, but there you go. And that's really the primary differences in terms of the interior layout of the car. Actually, there's a couple of things that I didn't show you on the infotainment screen, the main touch screen. So we'll go through that again just now, just to very quickly cover those little differences. You can see that if I switch into SatNav, you get the new SatNav screen, which is very slightly different. There's not a lot in it, but you can see there's a little bit more clean graphics, shall we say. The way this slides up into the screen, etc. Little bit more, probably a bit more modern looking and a bit cleaner, but the engine behind it, the actual SatNav engine, is the same. It's still the Hse navigation system. You can switch it to 2D, north up, 3D, etc. So the functionality is exactly the same, but the graphics slightly different, a little bit cleaner. And one thing I'll say, which I can't actually show you because I haven't got it with me, but when you put this into Carplay mode, Carplay fills the same area that map fills there, and you still get these shortcut buttons at the side of the screen. And that, I think, is brilliant, because it makes it a single press if you want to get back quickly into the Jaguar menu to look at, let's say, your energy state or whatever. Oops, sorry, I burst you a bit there, or whatever. So you can always do that. But what I think is particularly good is on my car, when I'm in CarPlay mode, I have to then press the menu button, then press the Jaguar button, and then press the camera button if I quickly want to use the cameras. But if you're about to reverse into a parking space or maneuver out of a junction or whatever, you want to access that quickly. Now, even if this was CarPlay in the middle, these buttons would all still be here. So to get to the cameras, it's a single press of that. And that is really nice. That's a big improvement over the model year 1920 version of CarPlay. That's a thumbs up for me on that one. Definitely like that. Okay, so let's go for a drive, see how it drives, see if they've changed anything there, and have a little discussion of a summary of what we think, we being me in this instance. So yeah, nothing else has changed, nothing under the hood has changed. You do have the option, I think it's an optional extra now, of 11.2 kilowatt charging, AC charging. But if you're in the UK, you're more than likely on a single phase electricity supply, so the maximum you'll be able to get at home anyway is 7 kilowatts. In Europe, you're more likely to be able to make good use of that 11.2 kilowatt charging. And likewise, even in the UK, if you're out and about, you would be more likely to be able to make use of it, because there's quite a lot of 22 kilowatt AC chargers around out there. However, if you're out and about charging, you're more likely to go for DC anyway. So the 11 kilowatts of minor use in the UK, but I'm sure a lot of our continental cousins will hugely appreciate that. Okay, so other than that, and it's quite a minor thing, for most people. As I say, if you've got access to 11 kilowatt charging at home, you'll probably like that, but to be honest, the step up from 7 to 11, you know, most people are charging overnight anyway. I don't know it's going to make a huge difference. So let's put it into dynamic mode, pull out of this junction, and yep, nothing's changed there. Whoa, back into comfort. Nothing has changed there, so the driving experience is still the same. Oh wow, I love that. Yeah. Whew, dynamics, driving, feedback, they're all the same. I'm noticing now I think this might be because it doesn't have the adaptive dynamics on this car, but there's less of a difference between comfort and dynamic mode. For example, on mine, when I put it into dynamic mode, the steering really tightens up, noticeably tightens up, and the suspension stiffens up, as well as the, you know, full power to both motors. Whereas on this, there's no change in the steering feel, and obviously it's on coils this, I did forget to mention that, but it's on coils this one rather than the air suspension that mine has, so the suspension feel doesn't change either. So as far as I can tell, on this car, dynamic mode is only changing the power to the motors, nothing else, as far as I can tell. I certainly can't feel any difference, where on mine you really feel, particularly the steering response, it becomes much sharper. But I think if you got the adaptive dynamics pack and the air suspension on this, you would probably feel a lot more of those, you know, you would notice that much more, and you would get that same change, if you like, to the steering response. I think it's just because this car doesn't have that feature. I'll talk about the coil springs, although it's not specific to the model year 21. I've always wondered whether having the air suspension on mine really made a huge difference, but having driven this, I've been driving it for about 24 hours now, and I've taken it down some rougher surfaces. There's a few roads around us that are quite rough, and I do feel a difference, I have to say. And bearing in mind, this is coil springs on 20-inch wheels. Mine is air springs on 22-inch wheels, and mine absorbs those bumps much better on those rough surfaces. Definitely glad now that I was sorry, that was the now that's obviously on early mode. The car in front of me braked. That was the collision warning system, but it never got particularly close, so I think it must be set on its most sensitive mode at the moment. I might have to go in and change that, because that was a bit excessive. I really wasn't even close to having an incident there. But anyway, yes. So yeah, the coil springs, I mean, it's not a bad ride, don't get me wrong, but I'm glad I've got the air springs now. If the air springs on 22s is smoother than coil springs on 20s, that says a lot for the air suspension, really. Sorry, I keep calling them air springs, which is clearly the wrong phrase, but you know what I mean, the air suspension. So this little stretch of road here is a little bit rougher, and I don't know if you're picking it up, but I'm feeling the bumps a little bit more than I do on my car. It's still a good ride, don't get me wrong, but you do feel the difference. How much of that is down to the air suspension and how much is down to the adaptive dynamics is hard to tell, but I would certainly say if it's within budget, I would definitely go for the air suspension. If budget is a concern, the coils are fine, they're not an issue. I'm not finding the ride quality bad, you know, I don't want to sort of suggest that. It's just, it's noticeably a little bit worse than my air suspension, but it's still a really nice ride. It's very comfortable. So I would say if budget is an issue, don't worry about getting the coils. It's a very nice ride still, but if it's within your budget, I would definitely spec the air suspension. Adaptive dynamics, I'm not sure how much difference that makes. That's the problem, is mine has the adaptive dynamics, so I don't know how much impact that's having on top of the air suspension. Hard to say, but it is a very expensive option. Again, I'm glad I've got it, but I don't know if I would pay it if it hadn't come standard with the first edition. So yeah, there we go. That's most of it. Couple of extra things that are missing on this. It doesn't have the self-parking mode. I'll be honest, that's no loss. The self-parking is terrible, and to be honest, on pretty much every car I've ever driven, it's terrible. Obviously I've not driven every car's self-parking mode, but I've driven quite a few, and they're all pretty awful. My I-Pace is no different. I don't really use it. In general, it quite often doesn't see spaces that I can see, so overlooks them and refuses to park in them. Ooh, sudden acceleration required. Hey! Sorry, that just puts a smile on my face every time. Had to get out in a tight gap there. Yeah, the self-parking, it doesn't see spaces that I can see and that I would go for quite often, and it always takes one or two extra manoeuvres over what I do when I'm doing it manually. It's not brilliant, so I don't miss that particularly. I don't think it's a great loss. You can spec it with it, I believe, but it's really not something I would say you're missing out on by not having it. But the other thing that is missing from this is a model year 21, and the thing that's missing, which I really do miss, is what Jaguar calls cruise steer assist, which is the lane centering effectively, whereby it will nicely stay in the center of a lane by tracking the white lines using the windscreen mounted camera. This car doesn't do it, and the model year 19 and 20 do, and I use it a lot. Motorways, it is absolutely brilliant. It's very relaxing. It takes a lot of the pressure off. You still have to keep your hands on the wheel, and you're still monitoring the car all the time, and it will occasionally, but very occasionally I have to say, drop out, but it makes long journeys on motorways and dual carriageways really painless and easy, and I do use it a lot. The model year 21 does not have it, and it's not even possible to add it as an option, so that's a miss, I'm afraid, from Jaguar. That's something that I really do miss, and I think it's a shame that they didn't have it. Now I'm hearing rumours that it may be back for model year 22, but I cannot confirm that one way or the other, to be honest, but it is a possibility at least. But on model year 21 you cannot have that, not even as an option. So if that's something you would use, keep that in mind. And I might, if you're looking for a used vehicle, I would probably go for a used model year 20 rather than a used model year 21, just for that feature alone, which I know sounds weird, but I really do use it a lot. If it returns for model year 22, then that's a different circumstance, and then I would heartily recommend the model year 22. Now there's a lot of people that won't use that feature, don't care about it and don't want it. If you're one of those, then yeah, ignore this part of the review. But I do find it a shame that it's not present anymore in the vehicle, a real shame. Now something else I've noticed just on this little drive is when I was talking about the lower touchscreen, something else that seems to have been removed is the control of the rear functionality. Now maybe that comes back if you have the 4-zone climate controls. That I can't confirm, but on this one I cannot turn on and off the heated seats in the rear, which I can do in my car. Now, as I say, it could be to do with the 4-zone climate control, but this car has the heated rear seats, and I can't control them from the front here, whereas on mine, on the seat control panel that I showed you, and I'll flip that back up now just to remind you what I'm talking about. On that screen in model year 19 and 20, there's a little down arrow at the bottom. If you press that down arrow, it scrolls the back seats into view, and you can turn the heated seats on and off in the back. Now, I find that useful for example, my parents who are not very tech savvy, so I just ask them if they want the heated rear seats on, and I'll just switch them on for them from here, rather than worrying about showing them how to work that dial. And likewise, if you drop your passengers off and they forget to turn the heated rear seats off for energy consumption reasons, you can turn them off from the front. Likewise, in my car, you can control the temperature in the rear by going to the climate control screen, which is the one I'll flip up for you now again. And if I switch to that screen, on mine there's a little down arrow again at the bottom of the screen. If you touch that, it all flips to controlling the rear climate control, so your dials left and right actually control the rear left and right passenger cabin, and you can control those from the dials in the front. Now, maybe that returns, as I say, if you get the 4-zone climate control, but it's something that's worth checking on a test drive before you put down your money. Again, it might not bother you, but it is quite nice functionality to be able to do that for your rear seat passengers if they're not sure about how the controls function. Certainly the heated rear seat one is very nice, because you can switch that off if somebody's forgotten to turn it off when they get out. You know, if you're dropping someone off without turning the car off, I mean. But yeah, that's really all the differences. They're fairly minor. The Touch Pro Duo is gone and Pivi Pro is in. Those are really quite big differences now. You know, and it's a very different functionality and a very different look. But not a, you know, it's all the same functions are there with a few minor differences. I couldn't find creep mode. That's one thing I'll say, is I don't know if the model year 21 has a creep mode. I can't find it. It's got the auto hold, and you can turn that on and off, but nowhere in the menu system can I find a creep mode. So I have a feeling that creep mode might be gone. It's not a function I use at all. I don't like it. One of the things I like about EVs is all the single pedal stuff. So I much prefer having auto hold and no creep mode, because that, again, it keeps the whole thing to single pedal driving. But if you're someone that uses creep mode, check into that. I've been through all the menus, I just can't find it. I can't find it anywhere. But obviously I've only been with this car for 24 hours, so it may be buried in a menu somewhere that I'm unaware of. But yeah, so that's the differences really. Same car, different touchscreen. There you go, that's the summary. Yeah. Now one other thing on the 21-22 model car, and this is something again which surprises me, but on my car there's a route planner app, a Jaguar route planner app in the iOS store. I assume it's also in the Android store. I can use that at home to pre-plan journeys, and then I can save them to my favourites or whatever, but when I get into the car the next day, or 2 minutes later, whatever, that route that I've just planned is available in the car. That doesn't work on this car. It doesn't work with Pivi Pro. So the only way to plan your routes is to get into the car and plan them, unless you're going to use CarPlay or Android Auto, obviously. But if you want to use the car's sat-nav to navigate a route, the only option you've got is to do it in car. You can't use that route planner app, and Jaguar tell me there are no plans to integrate it into the new model, so something else that's missing. So yeah, I mean, the more I think about this review, really, it's been a review consisting of what they've taken out, and there's not an awful lot that they've added in. Pivi Pro is nice, but Touch Pro Duo is no, you know, it's no laggard. It's not, you know, don't believe the hype of the bad press. A lot of those bad press statements that you can find people regurgitating, particularly the fanboys of certain brands, about the IPace's navigation and infotainment being laggy and sluggish, really aren't relevant anymore with the later S19 updates, and now and onwards, you know, the S20, and we're now on the S21 update series. Really, it's very good, and it's, yeah, maybe a little bit slower than the Pivi Pro, but trust me, you're not going to see, you know, it's not a massive difference. Likewise, the car boot up sequence has been optimized much more, and now you're not sitting around waiting for ages for the car to boot up. I mean, it was never ages, but it was a little bit slow, but now it's not really noticeably different to the Pivi Pro, in all honesty. Possibly a little bit slower, but not much, really not much. And if you use preconditioning, it now does a lot behind the scenes while it's preconditioning. So when you get in, and even when you unlock the car, it starts doing stuff. So by the time you get in, there's a lot more already been done. So the car is more primed, if you like, and ready to go. So they've done a lot to optimize that, and it's nothing like it was in the very early days, where it was a little bit slow to boot up. So although Pivi Pro is better, faster, smoother, it's not a quantum leap, because of the steady improvements they've managed to make to Touch Pro Duo, thanks to those brilliant over-the-air updates that Jaguar's been doing for a couple of years now. So yeah, a lot of it is things that have been removed. You know, we've lost the cruise steer assist, not available even as an option. You've lost the parking assist, no great loss, but the simple fact is it's gone. Although I believe it is available as an option, I wouldn't option it in, to be honest. What else have we lost? They're the two biggies. The heads-up display I didn't really mention, but it functions exactly the same and looks identical. So I've not seen any difference in that at all. And yeah, that's about it really. Not much change, but little incremental steps. A lot of people will love the Touch Pro Duo. A lot of people will love the Pivi Pro. To me, it's a minor improvement, not a massive difference. On balance, the cruise steer assist is the biggest one for me, and on balance I'm happy with my model year 19 I Pace, to be honest. I like the features on it. I do like that 3D view. It's like black magic the way they've done that. It's absolutely phenomenal. However, maybe a bit gimmicky. Not sure how much I would rely on it or use it on a day-to-day basis, if I'm honest. That top-down view is a little more helpful for me. And one thing here, and again I might have missed it, but I couldn't find a way to make that top-down view take over the whole screen, where on my car you can turn it into a sort of landscape mode and it fills the whole upper touch screen. I couldn't find a way to do that on this, but that may be down to only having 24 hours with the vehicle so far. and not having found it. But again, if you're using that top-down view, it is nice to make it bigger like that and fill the whole screen. Makes it easier to see when you're manoeuvring up to a curb exactly where your wheels are in relation to the curb. And likewise, it doesn't have the wheels view. I've only just realised that. On my car you can get a top-down view of the two front wheels, so if you're positioning next to a curb you can get it really accurate, or if you're going through a narrow gap you can get it pinpoint accurate that your wheels aren't going to curb. I've just realised this doesn't have that camera view either. Something else that's missing. So yeah, well, there's some nice swishy graphics and details in here. There's a few things missing. The wheel view, the top-down fill in the screen view, and bear in mind some of these may be available. This might be down to me not being able to find them. Creep mode gone, cruise steer assist gone, and that's a big one for me. I also do really like that wheel view, very handy for tight manoeuvres, particularly narrow gaps like at car parks or streets with traffic calming measures. Some of those can be quite tight. You know, entries to multi-storey car parks can be quite tight. So that top-down view where you can see the wheels and, you know, really accurately gauge them against the curb, that's quite a few missing features, to be honest. And it's a shame. It's the same great car, slightly better infotainment, slightly different graphics on both the dashboard and the lower touchscreen, but neither of them I would say are better. They're not particularly worse, they're just a little bit different. Put it this way, I don't think, if I was looking to change my car, I don't know that an update would be a big selling feature for me. Luckily I'm not changing my car, so I don't have to worry about it, but I don't feel that there's a huge update in the model year, in the sort of midlife refresh that they've offered. Okay, I just want to edit in here a couple of extra things that I've noticed since I did the video, which kind of improve the model year 21's status a little bit. But basically, there's a few things I've discovered now which are small improvements as well, and one correction. I said that the heads-up display had exactly the same graphics, but that's actually wrong. I've discovered that when you're using the navigation, the next turn direction in the heads-up display now has slightly different graphics. Again, it's no massive thing, but it now presents a little map, an actual, almost a screenshot of the map with a moving icon on it to show where your car is in relation to the next junction. Where on the model year 19 and 20, you get that little sort of stylized diagram of the next junction. It's just as accurate, but as I say, rather than that sort of tulip diagram of a roundabout or sort of stylized diagram of the next junction, you actually get a proper map effectively of that next junction or roundabout. So that's one difference. And a couple of improvements that I've spotted is that now if you're using or if you've had a cruise control set and you want to resume it, let's say you've had to disengage it because you were coming to a stop. One that happens to me a lot, for example, is if I'm following another car up to a set of traffic lights and there's a keep clear zone before the traffic lights, the car is going to come to a stop behind the car in front on the keep clear zone. So you have to disengage cruise control so you can stop before the keep clear zone. On my car, you then have to accelerate up to 14 miles an hour before you can re-engage the cruise control. But on the model year 21, you can re-engage it from any speed. It doesn't, you can't do it if the car's stationary for pretty obvious reasons, but if you're moving at all, even if it's like 1 mile an hour, you can press the resume button and the cruise control will kick back in again at your last set speed. So that's useful. I like that, because sometimes when you're stuck in traffic, using the traffic aware system, you know, the cruise control, so that you can just keep going in that stop-start traffic. As soon as you disengage it for any number of reasons, where you might want to stop early, either to let someone out at a junction, let a pedestrian cross, stop for a keep clear or a box junction or whatever. On mine, you can't then re-engage it until you're traveling at 14 miles an hour, which sometimes in stop-go traffic doesn't happen again. So you lose your whole you know, stop-start system, and you're driving manually again. First world problems. So that's an improvement. And the other thing that I've noticed is that the auto hold is much better on the new one. On mine, it only really works on an uphill or a level, you know, flat or uphill. Obviously, if it's flat, it's not really an issue. But if you're sort of nose down, so rolling down a hill, on a very slight incline, the auto hold does work. But any more than that, you have to hold your foot on the brake or engage the parking brake until the car moves. So on the new one, you only have to auto hold. Also, sometimes on the model year 1920, you really have to press firmly on the brake, or it won't detect it as a that you want the auto hold to engage. Where on this, the auto hold seems to engage much easier and more reliably. And as I say, it stops you whether you're pointing uphill, downhill, or on the level. So that's an improvement as well. So those couple of things are slight improvements. The heads-up display, slightly different graphics. Only for that sat-nav next junction part. Everything else on the HUD is pretty much the same. So there are a few things that are improvements on the model year 21 that I hadn't encountered at the time of recording the video. Okay, back to me. Heavy Pro, if it floats your boat, you may find it a huge step up, and if you do, then great, you know, by all means. But for me, it really feels like the same car with slightly different graphics and a few missing features, and I hate to say that. None of them are, I suppose, deal breakers. None of them are massive things in and of themselves, but at the risk of repeating myself, I would really miss, if this was my car, if I was to change my car for a brand new I-Pace, I would really miss cruise steer assist, the lane centering, would really miss that. I would miss the wheels down view. Yeah, those are the two main ones. The additional features, yeah, I can't review the clear sight rear view mirror, which is where they've incorporated, I can't show you it, but they've incorporated a sorry, I lost my train of thought there. And yeah, they've incorporated a camera into the little shark fin on the rear roof, and now there's a camera in there. And the rear view mirror in the center of the windscreen, there's a little button on it, and you can switch it so that it's either just a normal mirror or it switches to that camera view. So if you've got, gives you better rear visibility, and it is fair to say that rear visibility in this car isn't great because it's quite a small curved and angled rear windscreen, where with the camera you get you get much better rear visibility. Also, if you've got a lot of stuff stacked up in the boot, for example, blocking the rear windscreen, you can switch to that rear camera and get much improved rear visibility again. This car doesn't have it, so I can't review that, but that is one extra feature that wasn't available. It's an option, but it wasn't available on the model year 19 and 20, so that is an improvement, but you do have to pay extra for it. I can't review it because it's not on this car. So yeah, that's an extra feature. Pivi Pro, an extra feature. That 3D camera, extra feature compared to those other missing ones. You would have to weigh it up for yourself. I think for my purposes, there's not enough here that would push me to update my car to a new one, but then I wasn't looking to update my car anyway. The million-dollar question is, if I was changing my car this year, would I change it for a new I-Pace, or would I be looking at a different model? And that's a tough decision to make, and I'm not going to make it here because that's not the purpose of this video. Gary and I are kind of planning to do a video along those lines, so I don't want to preempt it in any way, shape or form. But what I will say is that the new I-Pace doesn't feel significantly better or significantly worse than the early model I-Pace. It's got some improvements and it's got some things that have been taken away, and it's up to the individual to decide how important those things are to them. I've given you sort of a feel for my ranking of things that matter. There are some features on this which are nice. That camera view is nice. The clear sight mirror would be nice, but I don't have it on this car. But it's missing a couple of nice features which are available on the 19 and 20 model years. So there you go. The main thing is, for me, the driving dynamics are identical. The throttle response, the way the car drives, the steering, etc. Although, with the caveat that this one doesn't have the tighter steering when you switch it into dynamic mode. But I don't think that's missing from the model year 21. I think it's just because this one doesn't have the air suspension and or, I'm not sure, the adaptive dynamics. But you get the same range, the same performance, the same efficiency, so they haven't made it any more efficient. Broadly the same charging, although you do get that 11 kilowatt AC charging, and I've heard rumours of a slightly better charging curve, but on DC ultra high powered chargers, you know, the 100 kilowatt, 150 kilowatt plus DC chargers, but I haven't seen that confirmed, and I think it's marginal. So even if it is there, it's not massive, and I don't think it would be the sort of thing that would alter your life, you know, in terms of road trip charging speed. But yeah, slight step forward, couple of things removed. There are rumours that cruise steer assist may come back next year. If it does, that would push me more towards saying, given that an absolute glowing endorsement for an upgrade from an old I-Pace to a new one. But as it stands at the moment, well, I wasn't changing my car anyway, but I'm definitely not changing it now. Yeah, it's a great car, it's still a great car, it drives brilliantly. Jaguar got that 100% right with the I-Pace, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They haven't messed around with any of that. So the car drives the same, the dynamics feel the same, the battery's the same, the you know, the sort of range and efficiency are the same. It's broadly pretty much the same to drive. So there you go. Anything that you would rave about on this car? Anything that would clinch the deal for you? Anything that I've missed which is a huge improvement? Anything that I've missed which is a huge step backwards? Or do you pretty much agree with me in that it's another iteration, it's an incremental step, but nothing groundbreaking unless you find the Pivi Pro to be earth-shatteringly better. Let me know. As ever, I'll try and respond to pretty much all your comments. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and like the video. That hugely helps the channel out. And likewise, do please share and subscribe. When you subscribe, click on the bell, and that way you'll get a little notification message every time I upload a video, and you won't miss anything going forward. Till next time, this is Abu Dhabi Dude saying so long, take care, see you soon. Bye. Abu Dhabi Dude.